one of the key things we've done is we've tied all the different pest models that have been built at WSU, pest and disease models, to the Ag WeatherNet. So it helps you go out and scout and do those types of things and determine what your management strategies would be. Okay, so let's look a little bit at no-till and fuel saving sites. And this is from Mark Shuffles, who at the time was the president of the Direct Seed Association. And this is basically his following in the crop fallow zone of his changes in fuel use as he moved from a conventional production summer fallow to conventional production annual crop to direct seed annual crop production. And you can see he went from 7.1 gallons per acre to 5.25 to 3.1 gallons per acre. So he's made some pretty significant savings. Farms 9,000 acres, that adds up. One of the things that he's found, and many others have found, is you have to sometimes change your equipment and change the entire way you think about farming in order to get these kind of benefits. Another one from Aaron Esser, who's WSU Extension in Adam Lincoln County. He's basically gone and he does all these presentations on farming with $3 diesel. And he's kind of gone and said at $1.50 or $3 a gallon, here's what your cost per, he does it per acre, he also does it per bushel for each one of these operations. But one of the things he always points to is don't just assume that you can eliminate one of these and have your output stay the same. You may have to substitute some other thing like spray for plowing or something like that, because if you just drop an input because you think the fuel bill is too high and you lose your yield because of weed problems or something else, why did you do that? You didn't help yourself. And just to prove that we do some no-tilling, or have done some no-tilling, not just in our wheat-based dryland cropping systems, but there's also been work on no-till with our irrigated systems, including in potatoes. In fact, Hal Collins, who's ARS and Prosser, pulled out a picture of no-till potatoes that WSU had worked on a research farm in 1970. So this is not new stuff. We haven't really seen a lot of this take off. But this is an interesting one down at Patterson, Washington, where right next to each other, Hal had no-till potatoes and conventionally tilled potatoes right before a windstorm. So this is a picture right after the windstorm. Basically, the conventional potatoes were wiped out and he had to replant. So, we can start to look at these things. Hal's actually ready to take this commercial, taking it to producers' fields next year. There isn't a whole lot of difference between these two systems. And in fact, he hasn't changed any of the operations in the potato itself. It's operations that have been changed on the rotational crops. But it can be done, and he's not seen any effects on yields in potatoes. He's not seen any effects on quality. Where he has seen an effect is he does have a yield drag on the second year of sweet corn. But he says the issue that he's got is because of the way they've set up their research plots, they have to do potatoes, sweet corn, sweet corn. He says, which you would never do commercially. You'd go to a different crop. So Agri Northwest is about to take this system-wide, and they've already done quite a bit of that. But, there is some savings. So we went from 12.48 gallons per acre to 10 gallons per acre in terms of the fuel savings in this system. Now, on a potato budget, that's kind of meaningless. $3,500 an acre for saving $7. But when you start to look at other things, other benefits of the system in terms of, not having to replant that potato crop, that's pretty significant. Okay, so I pointed out earlier that nitrogen is the bigger issue, and I use this slide. Producers seem to know this, but a lot of other people that we talk to, especially people from Olympia, don't understand this. And everybody cries about the price of fuel, but the reality is nitrogen fertilizer is a much bigger input in many of our agricultural systems. And so it's last year, these numbers have changed a little bit. We kind of update these slides every once in a while, but the point is, the cost of nitrogen in this particular grain-based cropping system is about 10 times the cost of fuel. And there's also 8 to 14 times more fossil energy embedded in that nitrogen than there is in the fuel. So we can make savings on fuel, but we probably should spend more of our time focused on nitrogen. And so here's one of the reasons why we have some issues with nitrogen. And this is basically the concept. We fix nitrogen from the atmosphere through a process that was designed by Haber and Bosch, who won a Nobel Prize for it. They were trying to make a weapon, but ultimately it was turned into what we use for producing food. Probably the most important invention in the last 200 years, in case you didn't know. According to Galloway and Callum, 40% of the present population on the planet could not exist without this process. Very, very important. And projection is by mid-century, 60% of the population of this planet could not exist without this source of nitrogen. Very important. But one of the things we know about nitrogen is it's really leaky, meaning it doesn't stay where we want it to stay. And so what happens is we produce 100 pounds. By the time we get it to the field, there's only 94 pounds. By the time the crop uptakes it, there's only 47 pounds. To go into the animal feeds, 31 pounds gets there. Getting it to the store and the product that you buy, there's 7 pounds. And what you actually consume, there's 4 pounds if it's a meat product. So we've got all these losses all along the chain. That represents a bad thing, but it also represents an opportunity. We can get a lot better on several of these. The one we tend to focus on is right here. And then also this one right here. Okay, so kind of the base level efficiency thing. And I'm sure that many of you are actually doing this. So now NASA's got GPS. We can eliminate overlap using GPS. This is not a hard thing to do. So Aaron Esser again kind of calculates out. If your nitrogen costs 28 or 56 cents a pound, and all you're doing is eliminating overlap, $540 per section. That's smart. We should do it. We're working on going another step beyond that, and this is a lot of the work from Dave Huggins at the Cook Farm in Pullman. And so what he's looking at is, it's not just GPS. We have variable rate applicators. We have a tool that came out of the optical industry that can actually be used to measure grain protein, which can be a proxy for nitrogen in the grain. We have some issues with that piece. But there's about 5 or 6 different things that if we bring them all together and then build the software, the database around that in order to make decisions how we manage, Dave thinks that we can come pretty close to hitting 30% nitrogen savings in some of our dryland cropping systems. Now, there's some issues that we still are working out with this, and we're probably 5 years away from really achieving this. We're better in some, hard red spring wheat is better than hard red winter wheat, just because there's more variability. The more variability that you have in the field, the easier it is to make improvements. But even to date, what we've done on the Cook Farm is he's pretty much hit 20% savings on some of the systems where he's employed this practice. And so what we did next is we said, well, let's take this to producers' fields and try and play with it. Because the Cook Farm, we have 369, let me step back one. Oops, wrong way. Can you go back 2? Can you go back 2 slides? Okay, so we have 369 georeference data points in this 90-acre field. So we've intensively monitored this field for 10 years. We know what's happening in that field as much as can be known with scientific instrumentation that we have. When we go to a producer's field, we have nowhere near the amount of data. And so what we're working on is, can we figure out how to translate what we know we can do on the research farm because we have the database behind it to what we can do with the types of commercially available tools that don't require 2 grad students and a postdoc out putting soil probes down. And this is a really important point because what we found is we have some proxies in terms of yield and soil organic carbon that we can use to do a pretty good job of providing a prescription map on a commercial farm. And so we've done this with John Ashelman and Lee Druffel, and we've done okay. We haven't done nearly as well as we've done on the Cook Farm, but part of that is because we tried different things for them than we were trying at the Cook Farm. So we were kind of experimenting as well as trying to see if we could do it. But I think that